everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a stunning mixed media project on this 18 by 24 inch gallery wrap number 3. Alright, let's do this. So the first thing we're going to be using is this joint compound. Okay, you can get that anywhere. Here it is. I got some scraped out into a little tub and I'm going to be cutting it with some general purpose glue. Okay, so I'm just going to pour, like 25-30% comparatively to the compound, generous portion. And the reason I'm using that is that it makes it adhere better to the canvas, for one thing. It slows down the drying process and is a binder, so there's less cracking when you're using this like for plaster. So I'm going to mix this up real good. I'm going to get out a stencil right here, which is a 3D printed stencil I bought online. And I'm just trying to get this thing taped on here. Now this thing is not real square because it's kind of flimsy. So I'm trying to straighten it out a little bit. And it could be just the way I had it stored. I don't know. But we'll get this thing taped on here and then we're going to apply our compound. So here we go. Now I actually mixed this a little. I watered it down just a little bit. I mix it pretty thin because I have such intricate little holes in that stencil. It could have been a little thicker. Next time if I were to do one, I would go a little bit thicker. But I'm basically going to fill this entire thing up. Then I'm going to let it dry, remove the stencil, do a little bit of sanding, clean up the edges, and I will be prepared to commence with the next step. So I'm going to speed this up. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Alright, so here you can see I'm taking my scraper and removing as much of this as possible until I get to the top so I can see the entire pattern. I want all of the plastic exposed so I can release it from the canvas. So here we go. Now I have a textured roller that I got off of Amazon. This one's kind of a alligator skin. And I'm going to roll this and get some impressions in the corners. There's 3 corners that are not part of the Nautilus shell. Or you could consider it a staircase, I guess, but it looks kind of like a spiral staircase, but it's a Nautilus shell. Yeah, so I'm doing this just to get some cool texture. Alrighty. So, here's the next step. Unmask it and remove the 3D printed stencil. Okay, now, it was a little tough to get off of there, I'll tell you, to remove the stencil. And maybe I should have waited a little longer, I'm not sure. But I ended up getting it off and it worked just fine, so here we go. Alrighty, so I'm gonna lift this up so you can see what it looks like with the stencil removed. Came out pretty good. I'm going to sand the edges, remove any extra little chunks around the edges, and spray paint it black, as you see here. Now I'm pulling out some funky gold leaf I also got on Amazon, and I'm going to cover the entire thing with this gold leaf. Okay, so I'm going to show you the size that I use. Size is like a type of glue, gilding adhesive, and we're going to spread that on there. And then we're going to put the gold leaf on it, and I'll get back to you in a minute. And that should do it. We're going to wait 1 hour, and then we're going to come back and apply our gold leaf. Alright, it's 1 hour later. I'm going to try to put this stuff on. It's really hard to work with as far as I'm concerned. I'm terrible at it. But it's so fragile. So I'm just going to try to lay this down, cover up as much of an area as possible, and as soon as it touches, it's pretty much where it is. There's no moving it around or anything. It is stuck. So, I'm going to cover this whole thing up, speed it up again, and I'll get back to you after that. So I got it all wiped off, dusted off, looks pretty good. I mixed up some really dark turquoise, and I'm going to brush this into the recessed areas, try to get some depth on this and some shading. So that's what I'm going to be doing for this step. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, and I'll get back to you in a few minutes. Okay, done blending, shading. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what we have. Now I'm going to be finishing this project with some epoxy resin, so this thing is going to be very 3D. It's going to be cool. So one thing I didn't show in this, after this dried, I masked this area off, and I ended up using that same dark blue turquoise and did a 1/2 inch frame around this section of the project. So when we get back in here in this next section, I'll be painting it black, but you'll see I have an area masked off. That is the turquoise blue. So here I'm going to start on the back with the black. I want to get some good coverage, nice clean. Then we'll go to the front, and I'm going to cover up most of that with the black. Alrighty, so I let my canvas dry. Now I broke out my good fine line masking tape by 3M and I masked off a rectangle frame around this image. I'm breaking out my adhesive and we're going to do some more gold leaf, but with just a standard, just plain gold. Alright, I got my adhesive applied, broke out my gold leaf, trying different techniques to try to get this stuff applied. Nothing's working real good, let me tell you. But it's kind of messy, but it's fun and it's cool. So we'll carry on with this. Alright, so here I'm taping off the sides of the canvas. I want them to remain black. And then the area that remains, as you'll see here, we're going to be painting with a lighter or medium turquoise blue. Okay? It's going to be cool, so hang on. And then we're going to be putting impressions into this blue paint with the textured roller, which will remove the blue paint and let you see the black behind it, and thus the pattern will be visible. I think I'm done painting. Now it's time to unmask everything and see what I have. So I always leave a little fold on the edge of the tape strips here to make it easier to unmask. And also, if you know, because I have this tape over relatively fresh paint, when I'm pulling this tape off, I'm pulling it straight back, not lifting up, which helps to ensure that I'm not pulling the paint off with the tape. Alright, so here it is cleaned up, and I am ready to execute the epoxy resin in a minute, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like before I do that. It's still pretty cool. You can see it's pretty three-dimensional. It's interesting. I like it. Here you can see the relief from the rubber roller, the leaf pattern in the turquoise blue. I think that's a nice touch. So, the next step, do that epoxy resin. I got a couple tips for you, and we'll see what I can do with it. So, step one, we got to make sure our canvas is level or flat, so when we apply the resin, it's not just going to run off the edge. So I have an app on my phone. It's called Bubble Level, and I'm just putting that on here, and you select the actual bubble, and it's in the center here. And then as I rotate the canvas, I can determine how level it is. Okay, so we want to make sure that's pretty darn level, as level as we can get. Now when you're doing a project like this, it's a little more difficult because you have the texture, which can throw off the level, but I'm just getting it as close as I possibly can before we pour the resin. Okay. Alright, so here's my resin, there's my hardener, then I have the resin. I'm going to mix this into 1 cup just so I don't waste cups. And what I do is I keep track of the levels on the actual containers so that I pour the exact same amount out of each one into the cup. I mix the crap out of it for good 5 minutes. I then let the cup sit for at least 15 minutes or so, let the bubbles come to the surface. The less bubbles, the better. Then I'm just dumping it in the center of the canvas, pretty much the whole cup. It's probably a good 12 ounces. And with the glove, I'm smearing it all over. I'm getting around the edges and make sure I get good coverage. Now, one thing I forgot to do this time, which I regret again, because I should have learned my lesson, is once you think you have the thing covered up perfectly, dim the lights or look at it from a dead-on side angle, from different angles from this edge, to make sure there's no dry spots. Sometimes, especially when you have a textured piece like this, the resin will pool around a little piece of texture or something like that and leave a dry spot. So the only way you can actually see those, you can't see them looking down. You have to look from the side. And what I do is turn one light off in my studio and I can really see it. If I turn the lights off that are above this canvas right now, then you can really see it. So it ends up looking really good. I'll show you in a minute here, but we'll carry on. And here's a close-up shot of it. I think it's really nice. It's got a mirror finish on it. It's perfectly smooth. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. It's kind of a subtle difference, but you can see the dark turquoise blue compared to the black compared to the lighter turquoise. It's a really nice combination. Work that dark turquoise into the textured Nautilus shell and into those corners I made, which makes them interesting. So you see that? Nice texture. I think it's a really awesome piece. The flowers look good, or the leaves, excuse me, in the turquoise blue. Want to thank those surf zombies once again. Love those guys. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. Got a couple wall shots for you. I hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the holiday. I will talk to you real soon. Thanks again.